Go ahead, Mark. Introduce away.
Fantastic. So obviously we have a chat. We try to have a chat each week, and record it. And we have some stuff in reserve normally, but we've just had a quick discussion about what we should do, and just for the audience's kind of awareness. We've got a lot going on at the moment within IQM, some really good stuff, but lots of stuff's going on, so that can wear us down sometimes, which I'm sure other people are happens to other people as well in business. So we've decided to go for something that we think will revitalize our us a bit. Um, and give you a little bit of background. Historically, IQM have worked with the train operating companies, and that's been the kind of majority of our revenue. We're looking to diversify, which we have done over the last year or so. But another thing that we'd really love to do is to be able to create one of our own projects that we can not only make a positive difference in the world with that project, obviously earn some revenue from it, have fun while doing it, and work with some other cool people, but do a project that really motivates us as a group. So what we've put in place recently, or what Thibaut's put in place recently, is he's updated our validation pipeline. And we are putting in ideas into that pipeline, which we can then validate to try and find a project, if you like, that will fulfill that criteria that I've just explained. So what we thought we would do, because we really enjoy those initial brainstorming stages, we thought Thibaut and I would have a discussion to try and generate some of those first ideas that would go into that pipeline.
Yep, correct. And maybe to add to that, so you've mentioned some of the criteria. Some of the other criteria that are in there are that it needs to be challenging to a certain extent. Don't want to do easy stuff. In a first instance, we need to be able to relate to the problem. So it shouldn't be too far away from at least one person in the team that we can sort of understand and feel what issue we're solving. I'm not sure whether you mentioned cool technology, but yeah, we want to work with some cool technology if we
Yeah.
can. And then the last one, which is maybe a bit more intangible or completely subjective, is is the world ready for it? Are people going to be willing to use whatever solution we come up with? So
Yeah.
yeah, those are sort of our main selection criteria, which reduce the scope a little bit. One of the sort of implied criteria for fun is that it needs to involve some sort of game, some form of game,
Yeah.
because we're all gamers to a certain extent. So yeah, I think
Excellent.
there's probably multiple ways of tackling this, or of sort of triggering creative seeds, right? One is with stuff that we think is really cool and we would like to do something similar, which is sort of a solution seed. And the other one is to start with a problem to see, okay, do we have any issues at the moment that we could potentially solve with technology, game, blah, blah, blah.
So that triggers something in me to get this kind of ball rolling. Um, we're going through ISO 27001 accreditation at the moment, which we're pretty near the end of, within the next week or so. One thing that has happened is we've put in all these extra processes and procedures, and there's also information that needs to be disseminated to the team. And certainly from some members of the team, when they hear the word ISO now, um, they're they're not feeling so happy. Put it that way. Their kind of mood drops and their body language changes because it's something that really doesn't motivate them.
Yep.
And one of the things that I think we need to do as a team is encourage everybody to highlight potential IT security breaches or security issues that we might have in the business. But in order to do that, I think we need some sort of engaging process. And I know that there are some games, if you like, physical card games and things that have been developed so that a team can train with scenarios. But I was wondering whether there was even a cooperative remote game, because a lot of people are remote now, that could be these security scenarios, almost maybe even role play type games that have someone who's the games master that can run, that will really engage people with certain characters, so that can be a really fun way of testing our systems and then having a discussion about it afterwards.
So I think there's two elements to what you're saying. One of them is that we want people to engage with a process that's potentially a boring process in and of itself.
Boring for some people.
Yeah.
At least, definitely.
Or
Yep.
annoying, or they'd rather spend their time doing something else.
Yep.
And the second thing, which I think is we shouldn't neglect, is the fact that the outcome of this process might feel negative or restrictive. So, for instance, if I say, I found this whatever security breach, we now need to put in place a new policy that's actually going to make my life harder.
Yep.
So not only do I need to go through this annoying process to raise it,
it then will give me extra work, or someone extra work.
Exactly.
Which is actually, even if it might be a conscious decision not to raise something because of that extra hassle, which would be a shame in a business, but it may well be an unconscious kind of nudge to not putting it forward because of the implications of extra work.
Exactly. And I think that obviously we're experiencing that now through this ISO certification, but I think it's not exclusive to that. It's just, in general, how do you encourage people to raise issues even at first glance if they think they would be better off not raising it?
You seem to be using the seed that I've come up with, and then potentially solving a higher level issue, which would also solve the issue I'm putting forward, which actually would, if that was to be able to be done, it would have many more use cases. It would solve many more problems, if you like, for more people, and therefore be more marketable, and therefore potentially make more revenue, which would be cool as well.
So there's two things that come out of that for me, two solutions, two sort of examples of solutions that I just want to throw out there as, potentially another creative seed. Yep. One of them is for child cancer patients.
Okay.
Who need to take chemo pills, and that's usually a horrible experience, right? Because they tend to have negative side effects to those chemo pills. And so without somebody going in, I don't know how many times a day they need to take them, but like 3 times a day or something, or even more often maybe, and checking whether they've actually taken the pill, that becomes an issue, especially if they're then at home or home care or whatever, and they don't need to stay in the hospital, and they just need to take these pills. Some of the highest failure rates of therapies is because the kids are just not taking the pills because it's just uncomfortable or painful or a really bad process for them, even though they know that they need to take it to get a better result in the end. Now, don't quote me on this. I'm not an expert on this at all. I'm just recounting the best I can recollect the story. they've I don't know who they is. I can probably do a
Yeah.
research, but these people that I'm citing this from have developed a game where it's basically a gamification of their battle against the tumor or
Yep.
cancer, where it rewards them. It's sort of this RPG, this real life RPG type mix where every time I take the pill, I can then sort of put it in the game and that will give me experience. And so I'm sort of evolving
Get points to
against.
spend or whatever. Yeah,
Exactly.
that you can spend in the game. Yeah.
And it's purely honesty based. I can put in that I've taken the pill and not take the pill, but they have noticed a massive uptick
Yeah.
in actually people consistently taking all of their medication. So that was one example which I saw prompted another response from you.
Yeah. So it reminded me of something in exactly the same realm, I think. And I can't remember the condition. I think it's on the tip of my tongue, but I can't quite remember it. It's the one where people have a build-up of mucus in their lungs and have to have
Yeah. I think you mentioned it to me. Yeah.
where they have to have be struck. Someone struck someone in the back, and it helps work it out, and then they cough up, and they have to do these peak flow type tests, blowing into an apparatus. Um, and I saw a program on it because there was a team of um, innovators from different. I think there was one from Google and a whole range of other businesses that were specialists in different areas. And it was a program on possibly on the BBC or ITV. I'll have to try and dig that out, where they got together to solve these problems. Really high level creative problem solvers. And the way they solved this issue is they gamified it and they linked this peak flow kind of machine that you have to blow into to a computer game, car game that they did. And when you blow, it made the car move in a certain way on the screen, and that massively increased a number of people's engagement with their therapy. So I think it's uh, the same sort of thing where you're gamifying therapy, which is unpleasant, to increase uptake and therefore have better results from it.
Yep. I think that's another way of showing how gamification can encourage people to do an uncomfortable
Yeah.
or unpleasant process. I think another element of it is this: people think that the outcome is worse than it will be.
Yeah.
We've got, both of us have got a really high risk profile when it comes to, let's say, life choices, right? So
Yeah.
in terms of career choices and those kind of things, because I think we're both relatively good at saying, well, what's the worst that can happen, and always seeing the positive in it. Now, there's
Yeah.
a load of people who, in that same process, see really bad outcomes that are very, very unlikely, or even because they think there's going to be a bad outcome, they don't actually want to think about how bad the outcome might be because they're kind of scared of it. And so there's just this sort of looming black cloud that means that they don't even want to consider changing jobs or whatever.
Yeah.
And one of the things that really works in those scenarios is to just go through, well, what is the worst thing that could happen? And how would you solve that worst thing? So I'm wondering if we could have, to a certain extent, a scenario planning tool that people could do by themselves to say, well, this bad thing is happening, right? The security risk has appeared in the business.
Yeah.
I don't want to raise it because it means that I have to start logging some stuff and it will just cost me time and da-da-da-da. But this tool will then help them to potentially go through that process and say, well, okay, this is the problem. How would you solve it? And what's sort of the worst that can happen? Well, actually, maybe we can automate it, or maybe we can gamify it, or whatever. And so making that bad consequence less bad. Why am I thinking this? Because one of the things that I was thinking of is we can see the benefit of this, but it's a bigger investment than to just tell people, no, it's in your job description, you do it or I fire you.
Yeah.
We know that's very ineffective, but it's a
Yeah.
lot cheaper. So a lot of people will do that option rather than making something engaging. And then be surprised if the results aren't there. Well, guess why? And so I'm wondering if we do this sort of scenario planning tool and we don't force people to submit it, if you will, or publish it, can we measure how many how many observations never get raised? You know, is there a way for us to show quantifiably people are making observations all the time, but they don't want to raise it because it's too much of a hassle? This is sort of a sales aspect for me, right? Well, for me it intuitively makes sense that there are a lot of observations that never get raised, but can we demonstrate that?
Right. And by you making them anonymous, that helps. By making them anonymous, by making them engaging, really engaging, that can promote people to engage with the system, which means you're going to be closer to how many actually are being thought about and not done anything with.
So actually, while I was saying that, we've now identified another problem that we could potentially solve with a similar solution. Is this, what's the worst that can happen for people who need to make difficult life decisions and get
Yep.
themselves out of an unhealthy situation?
Yep.
Whatever that is, relationship, work, food, eating habits, whatever, all of those things. So that's another one there.
I like the way that, and I was thinking about, I think this is in relation to another idea, but having a framework that has some modules or is at least customizable to a certain extent. So you're pitching it at a certain level of some sort of problem solving, which I think we're talking about, and then you enable an element of customization, which means that we could apply it to different issues that you're identifying, if you like, similar but different, or that might allow an organization to customize it in some way to their particular issue. So for example, some organizations, let's say a big warehouses with high ceilings, with big heavy boxes and vehicles moving around carrying goods and things like that. They really want people to feedback about near misses and risk.
Yeah.
So a tool like you're suggesting, if that encourages people to feedback, that's going to be very, very positive on a safety kind of element. But then you're talking about a career type customization. So yeah, I can see that it could be a useful tool in a whole range of areas, which I think would be, makes business sense if it can solve a lot of different things and be tweaked or customized.
Yeah, and I think the key elements are to make sure that it doesn't take more or much more time than it would to do the process. Actually, it can probably, you can probably quantify that it's okay that it takes 50% more time if you double the amount of incidents that are reported.
Yeah, yeah,
There's a logic there.
yeah. And if people are more fun and engaged, and and it increases those incidents, then that that might be, that's really important. I think, especially in some industries, that's absolutely critical. If you can increase that, if you could increase the amount of incidents that are
Mm,
reported by 5% or 10%
mm,
on an oil rig,
yeah.
that could reduce drastically the cost of someone dying, which happens in those sort of really dangerous situations.
So that's three high level problems that we've identified now with multiple use cases and
Yep.
multiple potential solutions. Is there anything else that we've got that we think would be worthwhile addressing sort of in our direct environment?
Thing that sprang to mind there, and it was partly linked to this kind of scenario tool, is sometimes engagement is down to working together on something
Yep.
or collaborating on something, which obviously games can be single player, but I think that the both of us have a similar profile in terms of the sort of games we like to play, which is cooperative games. Because it feels like in at least in a sense that we've been talking about increasing somebody reporting something rather than a group of people doing it. But yeah, I just wanted to add that into that mix, because one of our staff today was talking about something that really motivates him is working on projects properly together. Now he's a developer, even though he's working. Even now we've introduced this working on the same product sprint together, he still feels like there's not actually that much interaction. There's some conversations and things, but actually they're working on separate tasks and separate code bases within a product, and therefore not creating something or collaborating and interacting that much. So yeah, I think certainly for some people, if you have a tool which brings people together that has a positive outcome that increases people's motivation and engagement and fun, then I would have thought that's a good thing as well.
So I think that's an interesting one because essentially my brain went, okay, I know what that problem is. We've talked about that problem, but we've also tried out working together more specifically for developers. And they were just basically getting mixed up between each other and just annoying each other more than anything. So they then reverted back to working on separate branches or separate features and then merging them together. And I think one of the issues might be that we have less of a collaborative software architecture design approach, if that makes sense. So we haven't sketched out a picture before we start filling out stuff with colors. So people start putting some red in the bottom and then some blue in the top and etc. And in the end it becomes a picture, but they haven't made the sketch. And so it's harder to see that they've contributed to this sort of common thing rather than only focusing on the red corner or the blue corner. And I think
that's with, just to clarify there, that's with regards to building new features or significant features within our existing products, isn't it?
No, it's also on new products.
Okay.
Completely from scratch.
Okay.
So because it's just, when we started working at IQM a year and a half ago, people didn't even know of each other, what they were working on, right? So there was no collaboration whatsoever. And now even on one of the newest projects that we've worked on, which has been completely done in this collaborative way, even there, that wasn't the case because we're still sort of getting used to that way of working.
Yeah.
Which doesn't mean that the result is bad. It just means that the feeling of how we've achieved it is different.
Yeah.
And I think, one of the other staff members mentioned that they would like to feel like they're involved a bit more in what the team does and some of the projects of the team, which I think leads to sort of this underlying thing that people want to feel and see what they've contributed to the result of the group.
More tangibly, more concretely.
Yeah.
In some way, whatever that way is.
Exactly. And I'm pretty sure that, because this is also an element of recognition and gratitude and those things where we can probably find a way to make that a fun and engaging sort of experience which is actually a part of, I guess, project management to a certain extent, to say, well, you've contributed that bit, and without you, it wouldn't have been possible to do this big thing.
Yeah.
So I think that's an interesting one. Definitely an interesting one to look at.
Okay.
Well, I think we have identified some interesting ideas. Maybe less volume than I thought. I thought we might have gone a bit more on sort of one of our crazy sort of mind rumbles and then generate like 20 ideas. But I think some of the ideas we came up with were actually really good. So
I mean, yes, I think that could have happened. But yeah, there's different ways of
yeah,
generating things, and I think we got further along the process in the two or three bigger ideas that
yeah,
we've generated rather than chucking out a massive list. So in that way, I think we've probably got those two or three tangible things that could be filled out within our validation pipeline rather than things that will need some more discussion and work on. So in that sense, I think that was I think
yep.
it was probably better.
No, I agree. Thank you for that, Mark. And
There you
then
go. We came to life a bit there as well.
yeah,
There
yeah,
you
yeah,
go.
yeah, definitely. I woke up a bit. Apologies for saying no there. I was halfway through and I was like, ah. But yeah, we're
See, I
working on
don't.
it.
I don't. I'm not sure I say no much at all. I think I'm quite good in that element. I don't know. I'm not consciously monitoring it at the moment, but I think I'm naturally quite good at navigating it in that way.
I was thinking, okay, what's a different way of saying it? And somehow it triggered in me, or I remembered, you've got a very characteristic way of saying, well, and then
Okay.
kind of disagreeing. And I think that would be a much better approach, to say, well, yes, but also, or whatever.
Okay.
Instead of
I'm going to monitor.
starting with no.
I'm going to
So
monitor for that. I'm going to monitor for that now because I'm not consciously monitoring how I do it.
yep,
I have this feeling that I'm quite good at not dismissing people's stuff.
yep.
But I haven't analyzed it enough yet to know what I'm doing and to, you know what's good about it and what even could be improved.
There we go. And I think it goes both ways, right? Is to if I pick it up when you do it, because it might be unconscious, then that might be a teachable moment, right?
Yeah.
For me, then, or well, for both of us actually, because if
Yeah.
you know what you do well, then you can use it and improve it.
Absolutely.
And yeah, the other way around, if I
Cool.
don't pick myself up on it. Anyway,
I'm so one last closing comment then.
do it.
As I said at the start of this, I don't think we do enough of this innovation type stuff. And I would be thrilled if we did 20 minutes, half an hour a week, bang, and generate some ideas. I think that recharges something in me, and I'm pretty sure it does in you as well, because we're missing that at the moment. Because we both know that I think when the company grows and we have more people to do contribute to the multiple roles that we're doing at the moment, we'd like to have an element of that in our weekly process. So maybe let's try and find a way to do that somehow.
Yep, I've got a response to that, but I'll leave
Yep.
your computer to Brenna, and we'll chat about it in one of our next conversations for sure.
Cool.
Thanks,
Awesome.
Mark.